Do the dress that changed everything. The autumn rain had stopped just minutes before Emma Hayes stepped off the bus on Fifth Avenue. She clutched her worn canvas bag against her chest and looked down at her outfit with a mixture of defiance and uncertainty. The beige dress had seen better days, much better days. There were small stains near the hem, and the fabric had thinned in places from too many washings. But it was clean, and more importantly, it was honest. Emma had spent the entire morning arguing with herself about this blind date. Her best friend Sarah had set it up, insisting that Emma needed to stop hiding behind her work at the community center. Sarah had described the man as successful, kind, and surprisingly down-to-earth for someone who ran a Fortune 500 company. That last detail had made Emma's stomach twist with anxiety. She had deliberately chosen this old dress. If this CEO couldn't see past appearances, then he wasn't worth her time anyway. Emma had learned long ago that people who judged based on clothes and status were not the kind of people she wanted in her life. The restaurant loomed before her now. La Lumière. Even the name sounded expensive. Through the tall windows, Emma could see crystal chandeliers casting warm light over tables dressed in crisp white linens. Well-dressed people moved through the space like characters in a movie about a world she didn't belong to. For a moment, she considered turning around. She could text Sarah, make up an excuse, and go back to her small apartment where everything was familiar and safe. But something made her feet move forward. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the tiniest hope that Sarah was right, that there were still good people in the world who looked deeper than the surface. The hostess's smile faltered just slightly when Emma entered. It was a look Emma had seen many times before. The quick assessment, the barely concealed surprise, the professional mask sliding back into place. "I'm meeting someone," Emma said quietly. "Reservation under Mitchell?" "Of course. Right this way." Emma followed the hostess through the restaurant, acutely aware of the eyes that turned her way. She kept her chin up, even as heat crept up her neck. The other diners wore designer dresses and tailored suits. She looked like she had wandered in from a completely different world, and then she saw him. Daniel Mitchell sat alone at a table near the windows. His dark suit perfectly fitted, his profile sharp and handsome. He was looking out at the street, his expression thoughtful and distant. As Emma approached, he turned and their eyes met. She waited for it. The disappointment. The polite smile that didn't reach the eyes. The way his gaze would flicker over her worn dress and scuffed shoes before he invented some excuse to cut the evening short. But none of that happened. Instead, Daniel stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving her face. And there, in his expression, Emma saw something she hadn't expected. Not judgment, not pity. Something that looked almost like recognition, as if he had been searching for something and had just now found it. "Emma." His voice was warm, genuine. "Yes, I'm sorry I'm a bit late. The bus, please don't apologize. I'm just glad you came." He pulled out her chair, and Emma sat down, her hands folded in her lap. The waiter appeared with menus, and Emma opened hers, her eyes widening at the prices. She could feel Daniel watching her, and she braced herself for the evening ahead. This was a mistake. They were from different worlds. Sarah had meant well, but this could never work. "Emma," Daniel said gently, "would you mind if I asked you something?" Here it comes, she thought. The polite exit strategy. "Of course. The dress you're wearing. Did you choose it deliberately?" Emma's cheeks flushed. She met his gaze directly, lifting her chin. "Yes, I did. May I ask why?" She had prepared for judgment, but his tone held only curiosity. Still, Emma felt her defenses rise. "Because I wanted you to see the real me, not some dressed-up version trying to impress you. If you can't handle someone who doesn't wear designer labels, then we're both wasting our time." Silence fell between them. Emma watched Daniel's face, trying to read his expression. He was looking at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Then, to her absolute shock, he smiled. Not a polite, dismissive smile, but something real and warm that reached his eyes and transformed his entire face. "That's the bravest thing I've heard in years," he said quietly. Emma blinked. What? Daniel leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Do you know what my day was like today, Emma? I sat in a boardroom with 12 people, all of them wearing expensive suits, all of them telling me exactly what they thought I wanted to hear. Not one of them had the courage to be authentic. Not one of them would risk showing me who they really are. He paused, his gaze holding hers. And then you walk in here, wearing that dress like armor, daring me to judge you. Testing me, being completely honestly yourself. He shook his head slowly. I think you might be the most genuine person I've met in 10 years. Emma felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them back. You're not disappointed? Disappointed? Daniel laughed softly. Emma, I'm overwhelmed, in the best possible way. The waiter returned and they ordered. As the evening unfolded, Emma found herself relaxing, talking, laughing. Daniel told her about growing up poor in a small town in Ohio, about working 3 jobs to put himself through college, about his mother, who had cleaned houses to help pay for his books. I still have the jacket I wore to my first job interview, he said. It had patches on the elbows. I was terrified they'd reject me because of it. But they didn't. No, the woman who hired me said I reminded her of her son. She took a chance on me. He paused. When you walked in tonight wearing that dress with such dignity, such courage, I saw myself. I saw someone who refuses to pretend to be something they're not. Emma felt something shift in her chest. This man, this CEO, with his perfect suit and his expensive watch, understood. He really understood. I work at a community center, Emma said. I help families who are struggling, who don't have enough to eat, who are one paycheck away from losing everything. I love my job, but it doesn't pay much. I could have borrowed something fancy for tonight, but I didn't want to. Because this dress, this is who I am. It's perfect, Daniel said simply. You're perfect. They talked until the restaurant began to empty, until the staff started giving them gentle looks. When they finally stepped outside, the city lights reflected off wet pavement, and the air smelled of rain and autumn leaves. Can I see you again? Daniel asked. Emma smiled up at him. I'd like that. But just so you know, I'll probably wear this dress again. Daniel laughed, a rich, warm sound that made Emma's heart skip. I'm counting on it. As they stood there on the sidewalk, the city bustling around them, Emma realized something important. She had come here tonight ready to prove a point, ready to protect herself from judgment. But instead, she had found something rare and precious, someone who saw her, really saw her, and loved what he found. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is show up exactly as you are. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that's exactly when love finds you.